and then moving towards detailed design of phase one. And ultimately that's for us to go into what we call design development of the drawings that are presented in the master plan for that phase, and from there moving to construction documents. And what that leads to is that we could finish construction documents by the end of fall, and the city could shelve those drawings. We don't need tender now, knowing that we don't need the land for another 2 years. So what we would do from our schedule and our scope of work is to complete construction documents, issue those signed and sealed to the city, and allow them to hold them until they need them. If they find in 6 months all of a sudden they need them, they have them ready. There's no point in us waiting on our scope. We're trying to push things through so you guys have everything you need for that timeline. So with that, we're looking at beginning the design development or detailed design as soon as we receive council approval on the master plan. Completing the construction documents by the end of this year, possibly end of fall, ultimately the timeline for us. And then we would look to tender construction documents in July of 2015, which will allow timeline to the end of the ball season, which is typically around August. So we would look to coordinate with the city come 2 years from now in July to tender those drawings, and then construction to start in September of 2015. That is really where we're at with everything. Open it up to questions.
Super, thank you, Chris. That was very expedient. Thank you very, very much. Councillor Kite.
Thank you, Mayor Christie. Just a question about the infill blocks. What would the cost be for those, just for us to get the first 90 blocks available for use? Have we discussed that, or you're just looking at the new
schematic
land?
We were looking at to allow for what the land will allow for, and we can easily start working directly with Calvin on calculating some numbers of what it'll cost for demolition to remove the roadway infrastructure.
Councillor Belsma.
As a point of clarification, you note a couple of times, and I believe Eric did as well, we are, you've noted it right in there, 90 plots will do us for around a year and a half, indicating 60 burials per year. Phase 1A is listed as 486, which says to me it's 8 years, where you've listed it as a 4-year capacity. Phase 1 is 1,650 sites, which is 27 years based on 60 deaths per year. Of course, that's going to vary, but I'm trying to understand why there's such a variance from what you're suggesting in this document.
The 60 is based on the past 3 years, and as things increase over the next, we projected out 75 years, and that's what the master plan's for, 70 to 75 years. So based on our statistics, working back, these numbers are based on, we're going to see a change in the end of the baby boomer, that whole flux there, so that's what those numbers, the 60 is from the past 3 years, those are the statistics we have. Moving forward, we're going to see an increase, it's rising gradually.
What you're suggesting is it's going to double, if not go substantially higher. It just, to me, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, so thank you.
Councillor Foster.
Thanks, Mayor Christie. Chris, thank you for your presentation. It gives us a couple of options, one of which we have to make that decision whether we want to go with phase 1A or phase 1. But thank you for listening to all the conversation we had and putting the pieces together. I think it's answered a lot of things that everybody had. So look forward to the next piece.
Councillor Christie.
Thanks, Mayor Christie. So I was wondering if I heard you correctly when you said that we can start using the existing ball field area immediately.
We wouldn't need the existing ball field land until 2015, based on infill.
I understand that, but did you say that we could use it immediately upon putting?
Yeah, based on the survey information we have, the land out there is pretty subtle in that portion. So once the ball field is decommissioned, really, if need be, we'd be able to stake out the roadway alignment and set the grade runners. That'd be one of the first things I would say to do once the earthwork is get a nice even, typically you want to crown it from the middle and let things run outwards. So we get a nice subtle crown, put the grave runners in, so as soon as really the grave runners can be installed, burials can take place in that section of land. And then we can work the roadway infrastructure around it.
Okay. I was just curious what brought about the change, because when your boss was here 2 weeks back, he told us that it had to settle in for 2 years, and we couldn't use it for 2 years.
We're looking at
the change came.
Well, it's really, we started to look at it a little bit deeper. We got the survey information in. There's going to be not as much impact if you look at the land up in here. The ball field land is pretty settled. You know, they've been playing on it for a long time. I'd say if we were moving into the south region here, where we know we're going to have to do a lot of cut fill, because that land currently burns on the west side and slopes down to the east, then I'd be concerned in regards to soils. But we did dig a test pit up into here. We went back and looked at those images over the last week, and we feel a little bit more confident on that land and being able to again determine into there.
Okay, thank you. And then also, as far as connecting the existing cemetery and the new one, is it still proposed that there's only the one spot far to the north? You know, we had discussed the possibility of relocating the existing columbarium.
Yeah, we've looked into
over
that.
to the new area there at towards number 5, I guess it would be in that map.
Yeah, we've looked at 2 alternatives, and we've provided some cost information that if Sandy does have in regards to that. I think it's pretty expensive when you come down to looking at relocating the columbarium. To move it itself is about $12,000. To bring the truck in, a crane, lift everything up, put it on a flatbed, and move it to another location. Plus, you have to put in a new structural foundation for that system.
Well, it's a concrete slab, let's not get carried away.
Well, the one that was in there was actually pretty expensive when you look back at the numbers. It has some decorative details.
Exploded aggregate, yep.
Yeah. And plus the cost for the local funeral home to store the remains that are in there for that time period while things get transferred out.
Okay, because when I talked to the local, that very person about that, he said that it would not have to be stored. They would that particular structure removed into 4 small parts and would be moved in its entirety. We're talking a half-a-day thing. And
that was the funeral home you spoke
yes.
with? Yeah, I spoke with the columbarium manufacturer and got a little bit of a different response. So
okay.
We'll have to maybe research that a little bit deeper.
No, and I guess I would like a clear idea of that. I mean, if that's what it is $12,000. That's, I guess that's a cost, but I mean that's pale in comparison to doing a new gate system, whatnot, over at number 1 where it's shown here. That's all.
Yeah, no, I understand. And we also looked at, there was a conversation about cutting across into the new land and old land a little bit further north, looking at disinterment.
Yeah, I don't think that was seen as very
No.
positive because of the number of bodies. That's why that number 3 there with columbariums was,
Yeah,
because there was no exhuming, it was just a relocated.
There may be, we look back at the GIS data that we received from the city, there may be a requirement of about approximately 9 plots that would need to be disinterred on the edge, depending on the limit of construction needed. We haven't dug into how far out they would need to clear things out to get the road base prep in. Those graves are pretty tight in that section. So there's some very narrow and thin graves when you look at it, and putting in a new roadway, base prep and stuff like that.
Because these new roads are going to be substantially wider than the existing ones, are they?
A little bit wider, just to allow a little bit more room for parking alongside the road. There was talk when we met with the funeral homes, a little bit of congestion, a little bit of tight fit. So we are looking, plus the construction. We don't want them to be, pushed out to the side and start digging in sub-base and affect anything that's out there.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rempel?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. I've had quite a few conversations about moving anything as far as people's remains, and I still can't support doing that. The people that I've talked to, they don't care if it costs us almost nothing to do it. They don't want to see any remains moved at all. So for me, when I look at this plan, I think as far as how it's laid out here is pretty positive, and I think if we can get a little bit of infill if we have to, I would definitely support that.
And I think one thing to note is that the north portion, as we're projecting, is an 8-year capacity. The next section before you get to the existing tree line would probably be another 5 to 6 years. So we wouldn't be crossing over into the additional southland where the 3 ball fields are until 15 years plus from now. And you wouldn't really ultimately need this entry point until you start getting down into that level. There's no need to access that portion, no need for those fields to be removed until you get to that point.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much. And we have some time slated in the agenda to further discuss this. So thank you, Chris, for bringing the amended drawings back and going through our requests and our concerns from the last time.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
All right, we have a presentation from Alberta Municipal Services Corporation. MSC, Brian Jackowicz. Mr. John McGowan's with us. Come on up, gentlemen.
I think that's pretty important.
Keep seats there.
So for the city, I'll double check. Because I know that too. That's my sister's stuff.
And I'll just get you to,
No,
on the front, there's a green button on that.
How many?
There we go. And when the little red light's on, it is you're on, and we'll ask you to use the mic so the people behind you can hear as well. So, Michael will just set up your PowerPoint. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Christie and fellow councilors. On behalf of the AUMA MSC, I'd like to, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to do a short presentation on the AMSC Energy Program. We have I'll need a mouse to, once we get it up.
We had a few presentations back to back to back.
We have a few versions of this presentation. We've got ones that actually go a couple hours long. This is a shortened version.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, gentlemen. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, we're here to present on the AMSC 2014 Energy Program. I'm trying the little wheel here, but it doesn't seem to be doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Just click on it now.
On the down arrow.
This way. So today, this afternoon, I'd like to talk just a little bit about the AMSC Energy Program, some of the history, because I think it brings some context into where we have decided to take the 2014 program. It has some significant changes to it. We'll talk a little bit about energy aggregation, particularly the aggregation component of it, because AMSC does firmly believe that there is a lot of benefit in still aggregating services, whether it be energy insurance benefits. We still think there's a lot of benefit to aggregation. We'll talk about some of the highlights of the 2014 program, why it's in your best interest as a city, as a municipality to contract for energy. A little bit about energy pricing in terms of how our products are structured and some of the benefits and some of the risks and some of the components that are attached to our various products. A little bit about next steps if the city wants to proceed with participating in our energy program, and then we'll have an opportunity for some questions and answers. A little bit struggled to read up on the screen, so I'm going to have to go back and forth here. But a little bit about our energy program. So AMSC has been involved in the energy business since the start of deregulation. If we turn back the clocks, there was a lot of controversy about whether or not the energy market should derail. AMSC not only participated in the market, but did a lot of advocacy work on the AUMA side in regards to making sure that whatever the government of Alberta landed on was in the best interest of consumers, which included municipalities. That is one of the benefits about us, participants in our program, because we do not forget about that advocacy side. So anything that's from an energy perspective that needs to be looked at from taken forth to provincial government, AUMA kicks in and AMSC runs the business. So in 2001, they launched the energy program and had a variety of energy partners. So that's probably the highlight of this chart. So if you take a look at the first couple of years, we had a variety of partners in terms of NMAX. Nexen Marketing took over the program 2004, 2008. They were once again successful in 2009. Lo and behold, halfway through the 2009, about 6 months into our contract, Nexen made a decision to exit the market. And one of the things that the AMSC board was very alert to is that any time that there was a corporate change that was out of AMSC's control, it affected our customers. And that was a large reason why, in this last change, the AMSC board has made the decision to do the way we've structured our business on 2014 to mitigate impact to our customers. So you can see since 2001 to our current program, we have grown the program significantly. From the 2004 to the 2009 program, we've increased our participants by approximately 47%. Just quickly on a little bit on aggregation, as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, AMSC really does believe in aggregation. One of the biggest benefits that we see is termed in that first bullet in terms of economies of scale. So we see value when there's more value and not in only getting a better price, but when you have additional volumes, you attract more participants to look at your product. So there's a huge benefit in terms of taking all the municipalities' load, aggregating it together and going to market in the hopes of getting a better price and more players at the table and setting up a competition amongst the industry. The other thing that's of value in terms of our program, I'll talk a little bit about it later, and it sounds a little bit of a broken record, but when we go to market with our volumes, we not only attract retailers, but we also attract true wholesalers. The difference between a wholesaler and a retailer dealing is that the wholesaler has only one interest, and that's to sell energy, whether it be the electron for electricity or natural gas. So their only vested interest in the market is to sell commodity. Next, transparency. All our costs are clearly upfront. There's no hidden costs in our program. So when the contract is signed, everything is transparent to the customer, and all terms and conditions are very clear. And we have no hidden surprises, so our contracts are pretty well standard in terms of all contracts in the industry. Next important part is there's no RFP or legal costs. So AMSC does all the due diligence that a municipality has to do in terms of the next bullet, and that's comply to all trade regulations. So we do a lot of due diligence. All the due diligence that we do provide comes at no additional cost. And we do exactly what consultants in the industry do for a fee. And that fee typically comes in as a flat rate fee, a one-time cost, which is often not included in the overall cost of the commodity, or it is an additional cost that goes on the actual megawatt hour or on the gigajoule cost once it's been procured. And then lastly, with our program, as I mentioned again, I'm going to sound a little bit broken record here, but it's very important points to get across, is that we have access to both the wholesale markets and not just the retail markets. So that really is a benefit to anybody participating in our program. Whoops. I knew that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen too. Struggling a little bit here.
While you find your way with that, could you just clarify who it is that you supply power to? Is it only municipal-owned facilities, or?
So no, we provide anybody who is a member of the AMA, but particularly in our program, we also provide energy to community-related organizations within the municipality. Typically, those are organizations that are important, that are not-for-profit organizations, an important part of the community. With the community-related organizations go under the umbrella of the municipality. They can either be direct billed, so the utility bill would be sent directly to that community-related organization, or it can be sent or included in the city, town, village, whatever the case may be, utility bill. So we work with the municipality to get that all set up prior to setting up the first billing period. So a little bit about the program enhancements. So it's a new program starting January 1st, 2014. What is the major change? Plain and simple. To mitigate risk, AMSC has, to our customers, has done two major things in my mind. The first thing is we've become a full-fledged retailer. We are registered with Service Alberta. So we can provide retail services to any member. So we do all the services. We're compliant with all regulations that pertain to any operating retailer in the Alberta market. And that is a fundamental change. The reason we did that is to mitigate that exposure to corporate decisions that are out of our control that I mentioned earlier. So now becoming a retailer, we can make decisions that hopefully benefit the program and spill on to benefit our participants. Digging into a little bit more about the program itself, we have come up with a variety of products. In the past, we only had a handful of products. But based on our experience with municipalities and what we've heard from municipalities, we've customized some products, which I'll talk about later in some slides, that that provides more options for municipalities based on their specific needs. The right partnership, we have lots of expertise in customer care. AMSC has always prided itself on that, and what we've done with our energy program is we've brought in the customer care billing internally. So when a customer phones now, they will no longer get TransAlta, Nexen, or whoever our partner was. They'll be directly dealing with AMSC employees. And the right price. So fully disclosed, we give the price, everything's up front. We have specific contents within our contract that allows a municipality to sell back energy that it doesn't use at the pool price. We see that as a real benefit, as a lot of municipalities strive to be more energy efficient, but as we know, that takes time. So any of that excess energy isn't left to you, it is actually sold back to the pool at pool price. So why contract for power? If I can get there. So really, this slide here really just talks about what's happened in Alberta. And as you can tell by the graph, the blue lines up and down, really what that's showing is volatility. The red line going through the middle of this graph basically shows what that average is. So we're looking at an average of about $70 an hour for pool price. In Alberta, power can go down as low as $0 per hour and go as high as $999.99. Because of that volatility, we think that for price certainty, budget certainty, it's probably a good idea for municipalities with significant load to try and take away some of that exposure and hedge some of the commodity. This next two graphs are sort of dictating or trying to demonstrate what the predicted pool price is going to be for electricity and natural gas. These are extracts from a source called EDC. EDC is a very reputable firm who a lot of Alberta market players use as trying to predict where price is going to go. So you can see that from the graph that it's expected that our power prices will continue to rise as demand grows and as the economy becomes superheated again. So it is set to rise much quicker than what we see in natural gas, but there's a lot of influencing factors driving why those costs are going to go up. Another major factor on why those prices are rising on the electricity side. Alberta, as you know, is predominantly coal-driven through the federal coal-fired regulation, greenhouse gas regulation on coal-fired plants. We're going to see a lot of plants retire. What's going to replace those plants is unknown at this time. It's highly speculative on gas. But the point here is that we're going to have a change of fleet between coal, and probably a mixture of natural gas, maybe some small hydro projects, etc. This same graph is showing an increase in natural gas. Commentary that was attached to this graph, and sort of one of the unknowns at this time on what's going to happen, and sort of difficult to predict, but they do know that it's going to cause an increase, just don't know how much yet, is how much of this is price is going to increase based on the fact of the demand on liquid natural gas. So as the demand for liquid natural gas increases, expected price will increase along with that. So I talked about the products. We have a variety of products, and I'm just going to run through them very, very quickly. I won't go through them in any detail, but basically our products are variable market rates, fixed price, full requirements. We have green power in terms of certifiable RECs. And what we do is basically profile the municipality's load and try to fit them into the best product. This is something that's pointed out on the right side of this slide, is that this is the services that typically a contractor will provide to you at a cost. We will do this all on your behalf. So we will get the load for the city, we will profile it, shape it, and come back with some product recommendations and give you some options on how you can truly hedge your power on a go-forward basis. So when we talk about the different products, what's the difference between the different products? So when we take a look at, as we go through these products, there's probably two things, or there's only a couple things on these slides with all those words. After we shape your load, the city needs to determine how much insurance do you want to buy. The more insurance you buy, the lower the risk is for that product. Of course, when you lower the risk and buy more insurance, it usually comes at a premium. In a lot of cases, a municipality doesn't need to put that premium on. In some cases, there are a few cases that there are instances where it's in their municipality's best interest, but we will go through that. So the variable market rate is nothing more than going at the pool price, the hourly pool price. And if we go back to the graph where we had those spikes, those are the spikes that you're exposed to. So when you take a look at a product like this, the risk profile is very high, but the premium is very low, because risk can be rewarded in two ways, as you know, in high price as well as low price. And hopefully at the end of the day, you can utilize that to your advantage. How? Some municipalities decide to hedge a portion of their load, 50, 75% of their load, and deal with that 25%. That's a prime example of what's happening on the gas market right now with the low prices. Let's go for a little bit of a forward hedge, buy a little bit of insurance, and take a risk on the variable market rates. Moving up into our fixed block product. So when we take a look at the load shape of what's a block product, when we take a look at the graph on the bottom of the slide here, it sort of shows the typical profile for a municipality. And you can fill most of that load with a block product, which is demonstrated in blue, and covers most everything except for the peaks. Those peaks are your exposure of the pool price. So base load is typically your cheapest product, and typically 80% of our municipalities use this product. And it is medium risk product. If there is risk associated at any time that seems to be out of control, they can re-hedge and put the customized structured block budget, where we're going to go to next, and start putting layers on top to mitigate the exposure that you have in those peak hours. The one caveat I put on these slides is there's a pricing schedule on the right side. Those prices do not reflect today's prices. It's just sort of trying to demonstrate the example that the more insurance you put on, the higher the price. So as mentioned, the fixed price with the structured block basically takes that same product that we just went over and starts to stack on some peak components, which we call it, typically more higher priced products, but it starts to mitigate the exposure that a municipality would have. Full requirements product is the most insurance one could buy. Basically, it has a parameter on it. You can use as much as you want, and the price always stays the same. As I mentioned, it does come with a premium, but as you can see, from a risk perspective, it's very low. And some municipalities, particularly our southern municipalities where they have lots of irrigation, etc., a product like this is very well suited for them. From a natural gas perspective, typically this is the pattern that you will see. Just the volume numbers will change from a municipality perspective. So as you can appreciate, during our colder months, the gas usage is higher and drops off dramatically in summer months. The small exceptions will be if you have a large rec center, you have a day or two in there that causes a spike for either gas or electricity. Those are the days that you sort of got to watch for, and we would work with you in terms of do we have to provide some additional coverage for those types of instances. So if the city were to want to explore our option even further, the first step would be to sign our confidentiality agreement. Our confidentiality agreement in no way does it commit you to the program. What it does do is gets us working in terms of getting your load that's required, and we'll start to do the profile and come up with a product recommendation. Those would be populated into what we call the MMA, which is our member master agreement. Once that member master agreement is signed, you are part and committed to the energy program. And we will work with you, depending on your product, to make sure that that product on an ongoing basis is doing what it was supposed to do as intended. And on that note, I will open it to the floor for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, gentlemen. Any questions? Council? Councillor Foster? And Councillor Connick?
Thanks, Mayor Christie. So I guess my question is, the presentation really is very powerful in the aspect of selling us the benefits. What's in it for you? Is it in the numbers of municipalities that gets you a better pricing? I guess where do you compete basically?
So if I understand the question, so we obviously, as I mentioned, we fully believe in aggregation, so we try to get the best price. With us bringing in a lot of services that we currently never did before, particularly around customer care and billing, there is a fee that we charge for that. Any of the revenues that are made, as well as in any service that AMSC provides, goes back into things like I mentioned before on our AUMA side, so that we can provide strong advocacy. On the energy side, AUMA participates. We've negotiated both electric franchise agreement. We've completed the gas franchise. We hope to have completed this year. Those are templates that come at a cost, but are free for any municipality to use as they see fit. We participate in an Alberta Utility Commission rate hearings. We do that through the Utility Consumer Advocate, where we have a representative sit on there and review rate applications. We participate in all of Alberta Energy's energy initiatives, looking out for the interests of not only municipalities but consumers within your municipality to make sure that the industry is doing what it was as intended. So hopefully those are just a few examples. I could probably cite more, but hopefully that addresses your question.
Councillor Connick?
Thank you, Mayor Christie. So, as opposed to what we're doing today then, so we would see a fee that we'd have to pay, and then of course the insurance premiums, depending on what product we choose, correct?
Correct.
And then, so if we're paying these in premiums, but will we save money then, in fact, if we're paying these premiums? What I'm trying to figure out here.
Well, the premiums aren't set by AMSC. The premiums are set by the wholesalers. So as you go into the higher priced hours, the energy rush hours we hear on the radio, the prices typically increase with that. So when we shape and we go to aggregation, we go with a set volume for base load, peak, and in some cases super peak, even higher priced products. So when we shape your load, we will let you know what your exposure is and what the best product is. So we don't set those prices, we only go to market and take a look at the prices that wholesalers and retailers are providing back to us. When we go to market, and I'm just going to pick a number out of the air here, we have 10 respondents for our products. AMSC is not obligated to any one provider. We can pick and choose our products based on the price or any peripheral obligation that comes with it if there is one. So the premiums are set by the wholesale providers and the retailers.
Okay, thank you for that. I thought you guys were setting them.
No.
Okay. Next question. So any revenues, and just for clarification, I think you just said, when any expected revenues don't go back to the municipality, they stay with AMSC and used for advocacy, correct?
Maybe I should talk about the, actually what happens with the fee. What the AMSC board is required to do is take into consideration all the costs of actually providing the services for Brian and his staff. And we include that fee. If at the end of the day when you get a captured, and part of the big benefit is having lots. The aggregation is having lots of power at the same time. That's where you get the better pricing. If at the end of the day you get a profit out of it, so if you get more fees back from municipalities than recovered, it's actually split into two purposes. One is as a dividend back to AOMA, says to help with advocacy, and the second one is R&D. And so R&D is money set aside that it allows AMSC to investigate other alternatives or other issues, whether it's energy. We're doing a major one on